Good morning. Welcome to Eat, Breathe, and Pray. It is day 191 of our thematic journey through the Bible in 1 year, and our reading for this morning is 2 Kings chapters 6 through 10. So if you want to grab your Bible and get that ready so you can read along, go ahead and do that now. And we're going to pray momentarily, and we'll do the reading. Father, I just thank you for this time, God. I thank you for the truth of your word, God. I thank you, God, for your presence, Lord. Have your way in us and through us, in me and through me, this day, O God. Glorify your name. Mold me and shape me into the image of your Son. Amen. 2 Kings chapter 6. And the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, "Behold now, the place before you, where we are living, is too limited for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and each of us take from there a beam, and let us make a place there for ourselves, where we may live." So he said, "Go." Then one said, "Please be willing to go with your servants." And he answered, "I shall go." So he went with them, and they came to the Jordan and cut down trees. Now it happened that as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried out and said, "Alas, my master, for it was borrowed." Then the man of God said, "Where did it fall?" And when he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it in there, and made the iron float. And he said, "Take it up for yourself." So he sent forth his hand and took it. Now the king of Aram was warring against Israel, and he counseled with his servants, saying, "In such and such a place shall be my camp." And the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, saying, "Beware that you do not pass this place, for the Arameans are coming down there." And the king of Israel sent to the place about which the man of God had told him. Thus he warned him, so that he guarded himself there more than once or twice. Then the heart of the king of Aram was enraged over this thing, and he called his servants and said to them, "Will you not tell me which of us is for the king of Israel?" And one of his servants said, "No, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom." So he said, "Go and see where he is, that I may send and take him." And it was told to him, saying, "Behold, he is in Dothan." So he sent horses and chariots and a heavy military force there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. Then the attendant of the man of God arose early and went out, and behold, a military force with horses and chariots was all around the city. And his young man said to him, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" So he said, "Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Then Elisha prayed and said, "O Yahweh, I pray, open his eyes that he may see." And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And they came down to him, and Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Strike this people with blindness, I pray." So he struck them with blindness, according to the word of Elisha. Then Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, and this is not the city. Walk after me, and I will walk you over to the man whom you seek." And he walked them over to Samaria. Now it happened that when they had come into Samaria, Elisha said, O Yahweh, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. So Yahweh opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. Excuse me. Then the king of Israel, when he saw them, said to Elisha, My father, shall I strike them down? Shall I strike them down? And he said, You shall not strike them down. Would you strike down those you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and walk back to their master. So he prepared a great feast for them, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. And the marauding bands of Arameans did not come again into the land of Israel. Now it happened afterwards that Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, gathered all his military camp and went up and besieged Samaria. Now there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and a fourth of a cab of dove's dung for 5 shekels of silver. As the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, Save, my lord, O king. He said, If Yahweh does not save you, from where shall I save you? From the threshing floor, or from the winepress? And the king said to her, What is the matter with you? And she said, This woman said to me, Give me your son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, Give your son, that we may eat him. But she has hidden her son. Now it happened that when the king heard the words of the woman, he tore his clothes. Now he was passing by on the wall. And the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth beneath on his body. Then he said, May God do so to me, and more also, if the head of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, remains on him today. Now Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the king sent a man from his presence. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold the door shut against him. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? While he was still speaking with them, behold, the messenger came down to him, and he said, Behold, this evil is from Yahweh. Why should I wait for Yahweh any longer? 2 Kings chapter 7. Then Elisha said, Listen to the word of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh, About this time tomorrow a seah of fine flour will be sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. And the royal officer on whose hand the king was leaning answered the man of God and said, Behold, if Yahweh should make windows in heaven, could this thing be? Then he said, Behold, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat of it. Now there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, Why do we sit here until we die? If we say, We will enter the city, then the famine is in the city, and we will die there. And if we sit here, we die also. So now come, and let us go over to the camp of the Arameans. If they spare us, we will live, and if they put us to death, we will die. So they arose at twilight to go to the camp of the Arameans. Then they came to the outskirts of the camp of the Arameans, but behold, there was no one there. Now the Lord had caused the camp of the Arameans to hear a sound of chariots and a sound of horses, even the sound of a great military force, so that they said to one another, Behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and forsook their tents, and their horses, and their donkeys, even the camp, just as it was, and fled for their life. So these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, and entered one tent, and ate and drank. Then they carried from there silver and gold and clothes, and they went and hid them. And they returned and entered another tent, and carried from there also, and went and hid them. Then they said to one another, "We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, but we are keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, punishment will overtake us. So now, come, let us go and tell the king's household." So they came and called to the gatekeepers of the city, and they told them, saying, "We came to the camp of the Arameans, and behold, there was no one there, nor the voice of man, only the horses tied and the donkeys tied, and the tents just as they were." And the gatekeepers called and told it within the king's household. Then the king arose in the night and said to his servants, "I will now tell you what the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are hungry. Therefore they have gone from the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, 'When they come out of the city, we will capture them alive and get into the city.'" And one of his servants answered and said, "Please, let some men take 5 of the remaining horses, which remain in the city. Behold, they will be in any case like all the multitude of Israel who remain in it. Behold, they will be in any case like the multitude of Israel who have already come to an end. So let us send and see." They took therefore 2 chariots with horses, and the king sent after the camp of the Arameans, saying, "Go and see." Then they went after them to the Jordan, and behold, all the way was full of clothes and equipment, which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. Then the messengers returned and told the king. So the people went out and plundered the camp of the Arameans. Then a seah of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahweh. Now the king appointed the royal officer on whose hand he leaned to have charge of the gate. But the people trampled on him at the gate, and he died just as the man of God had spoken, who spoke when the king came down to him. So it happened just as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, will be sold tomorrow about this time at the gate of Samaria. And the royal officer had answered the man of God and said, "Now behold, if Yahweh should make windows in heaven, could such a thing be?" And he had said, "Behold, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat of it." And so it happened to him, for the people trampled on him at the gate, and he died. 2 Kings chapter 8. Now Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, "Arise and go with your household, and sojourn wherever you can sojourn. For Yahweh has called for a famine, and it will even come on the land for 7 years." So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God, and she went with her household, and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. Now it happened at the end of 7 years that the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went out to cry out to the king for her house and for her field. Now the king was speaking with Gehazi, the young man of the man of God, saying, "Please recount to me all the great things that Elisha has done." Now it happened as he was recounting to the king how he had restored to life the one who was dead, that behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life was crying out to the king for her house and for her field. And Gehazi said, "My lord, O king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elisha restored to life." Then the king asked the woman, and she recounted it to him. So the king appointed for her a certain officer, saying, Restore all that was hers, and all the produce of the field, from the day that she left the land, even until now. Then Elisha came to Damascus. Now Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, was sick, and it was told to him, saying, The man of God has come here. And the king said to Hazael, Take a present in your hand, and go to meet the man of God, and inquire of Yahweh by him, saying, Will I be restored to life from this sickness? So Hazael went to meet him, and took a present in his hand, even every kind of good thing from Damascus, 40 camels' loads. And he came and stood before him and said, Your son Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, Will I be restored to life from this sickness? Then Elisha said to him, Go, say to him, You will surely be restored to life, but Yahweh has shown me that he will certainly die. And he fixed his gaze steadily on him until he was ashamed, and the man of God wept. Then Hazael said, Why does my lord weep? Then he said, Because I know the evil that you will do to the sons of Israel. Their fortifications you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword, and their infants you will dash in pieces, and their pregnant women you will rip up. Then Hazael said, But what is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do this great thing? And Elisha answered, Yahweh has shown me that you will be king over Aram. So he went from Elisha and came to his master, and he said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he said to me that you will surely be restored to life. Now it happened that on the following day he took the cover and dipped it in water and spread it on his face, so that he died. And Hazael became king in his place. Now in the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being then the king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became king. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, just as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab became his wife, and he did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh. However, Yahweh was not willing to make Judah a ruin for the sake of David his servant, since he had promised him to give a lamp to him through his sons always. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah, and made a king over themselves. Then Joram crossed over to Zair, and all his chariots with him. And he arose by night and struck the Edomites who were surrounding him, and the commanders of the chariots, but his army fled to their tents. So Edom revolted against Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. Now the rest of the acts of Joram, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahaziah his son became king in his place. In the 12th year of Joram the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, became king. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. He also walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh, like the house of Ahab had done, because he was a son-in-law of the house of Ahab. Then he went with Joram the son of Ahab to war with Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Arameans struck Joram. So King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Arameans had caused by striking him at Ramah when he fought against Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahaziah the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram the son of Ahab in Jezreel because he was sick. 2 Kings chapter 9. Now Elisha the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets and said to him, Gird up your loins and take this flask of oil in your hand and go to Ramoth Gilead. And you will come there and look there for Jehu the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi. And you will come in and bid him arise from among his brothers, and you will cause him to come into an inner room. Then you will take the flask of oil and pour it on his head and say, Thus says Yahweh, I have anointed you king over Israel. Then open the door and flee, and do not wait. So the young man of the prophet went to Ramoth Gilead. Then he came, and behold, the commanders of the military were sitting, and he said, I have a word for you, O commander. And Jehu said, For which one of us? And he said, For you, O commander. And he arose and came into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said to him, Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, I have anointed you king over the people of Yahweh, even over Israel. And you shall strike the house of Ahab your master, that I may avenge the blood of my slaves the prophets, and the blood of all the slaves of Yahweh, at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab every male person, both bond and free, in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the property of Jezreel, and none shall bury her. Then he opened the door and fled. Now Jehu came out to the servants of his master, and one said to him, Is all well? Why did this mad fellow come to you? And he said to them, You know the man and his talk. And they said, It is a lie. Declare it to us now. And he said, Thus and thus he said to me, Thus says Yahweh, I have anointed you king over Israel. Then they hurried, and each man took his garment and placed it under him on the bare steps, and blew the trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram, with all Israel, was guarding Ramoth Gilead against Hazael, king of Aram. But King Joram had returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Arameans had struck him when he had fought with Hazael, king of Aram. So Jehu said, If this is your mind, then let no one escape, or leave the city to go declare it in Jezreel. Then Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Joram was lying there. Ahaziah, king of Judah, had come down to see Joram. Now the watchman was standing on the tower in Jezreel, and he saw the company of Jehu as he came, and said, I see a company. And Joram said, Take a horseman and send him to meet them, and let him say, Is it peace? So a horseman went to meet him and said, Thus says the king, Is it peace? And Jehu said, What have you to do with peace? Turn behind me. And the watchman declared, saying, The messenger came to them, but he did not return. Then he sent out a second horseman, and he came to them and said, Thus says the king, Is it peace? And Jehu answered, What have you to do with peace? Turn behind me. And the watchman declared, saying, He came up to them, but he did not return. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu the son of Nimshi, for he drives in madness. Then Joram said, Get ready. And they made his chariot ready. Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went out, each in his chariot. And they went out to meet Jehu, and found him in the property of Naboth the Jezreelite. Now it happened that when Joram saw Jehu, he said, "Is it peace, Jehu?" And he answered, "What peace, so long as the harlotries of your mother Jezebel and her sorceries are so many?" So Joram turned about and fled and said to Ahaziah, "There is deception, O Ahaziah." And Jehu drew his bow and with his full strength struck down Joram between his arms, and the arrow went through his heart, and he crouched down in his chariot. Then Jehu said to Bidkar his officer, "Lift him up and cast him into the property of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For I remember when you and I were riding together after Ahab his father, that Yahweh lifted up this oracle against him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, says Yahweh, and I will repay you in his property, says Yahweh. So now lift him up and cast him into the property, according to the word of Yahweh." And Ahaziah the king of Judah saw this, and fled by the way of the garden house. And Jehu pursued him and said, "Strike him down too, in the chariot." So they struck him down at the ascent of Gur, which is at Ibleam, but he fled to Megiddo and died there. Then his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem, and buried him in his grave with his fathers in the city of David. Now in the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, Ahaziah became king over Judah. Then Jehu came to Jezreel, and Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her eyes, and adorned her head, and looked out the window. As Jehu entered the gate, she said, "Is it peace, Zimri, your master's killer?" Then he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And 2 or 3 officials looked down at him, and he said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. Then he came in and ate and drank, and he said, Take care now of this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." They went to bury her, but they found nothing more of her than the skull, and the feet, and the palms of her hands. Therefore they returned and declared it to him. And he said, "This is the word of Yahweh, which he spoke by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, In the property of Jezreel the dogs shall eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the corpse of Jezebel will be as dung on the face of the field in the property of Jezreel, so that they cannot say, This is Jezebel." 2 Kings chapter 10. Now Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. And Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the rulers of Jezreel, the elders, and to the guardians of the children of Ahab, saying, "So now, when this letter comes to you, since your master's sons are with you, as well as the chariots and horses and a fortified city and the weapons, look for the best and fittest of your master's sons, and set them on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house." But they feared exceedingly greatly, and said, "Behold, the 2 kings did not stand before him. How then can we stand?" And the one who was over the household, and he who was over the city, the elders, and the guardians of the children, sent word to Jehu, saying, "We are your servants. All that you say to us we will do. We will not make any man king. Do what is good in your sight." Then he wrote a letter to them a second time, saying, "If you are on my side, and you will listen to my voice, take the heads of the men, your master's sons, and come to me about this time tomorrow at Jezreel." Now the king's sons, 70 persons, were with the great men of the city, who were rearing them. Now it happened that when the letter came to them, they took the king's sons and slaughtered them, 70 persons, and put their heads in baskets, and sent them to him at Jezreel. Then the messenger came and told him, saying, "They have brought the heads of the king's sons." So he said, "Put them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the gate until morning." Now it happened in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, "You are righteous. Behold, I conspired against my master and killed him. But who struck down all these? Know then that nothing from the word of Yahweh, which Yahweh spoke concerning the house of Ahab, shall fall to the earth. Indeed, Yahweh has done what he spoke by the hand of his servant Elijah. So Jehu struck down all who remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men and his acquaintances and his priests, until there was no survivor remaining for him. Then he arose and came out and went to Samaria. On the way, while he was at Beth-eked of the shepherds, Jehu found the relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and said, Who are you? And they said, We are the relatives of Ahaziah, and we have come down to greet the sons of the king and the sons of the queen mother. Then he said, Take them alive. So they took them alive and slaughtered them at the pit of Beth-eked, 42 men, and he left none of them. Then he went from there and found Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him. And he blessed him and said to him, Is your heart right, as my heart is with your heart? And Jehonadab answered, It is. Jehu said, If it is, give me your hand. And he gave him his hand, and he took him up to him in the chariot. Then he said, Come with me and see my zeal for Yahweh. So he made him ride in his chariot. And he came to Samaria and struck down all who were left to Ahab in Samaria until he had destroyed him, according to the word of Yahweh which he spoke to Elijah. Then Jehu gathered all the people and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little. Jehu will serve him much. So now summon to me all the prophets of Baal, all his slaves and all his priests. Let no one be missing, for I have a great sacrifice for Baal. Whoever is missing shall not live. But Jehu did it in cunning, so that he might cause the slaves of Baal to perish. And Jehu said, Sanctify a solemn assembly for Baal. And they summoned them. And then Jehu sent throughout Israel, and all the slaves of Baal came, so that there was not a man left who did not come. So they came into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was filled from one end to the other. Then he said to the one who was in charge of the wardrobe, Bring out garments for all the slaves of Baal. So he brought out garments for them, and Jehu came into the house of Baal with Jehonadab the son of Rechab, and he said to the slaves of Baal, Search and see, lest there be here with you any of the slaves of Yahweh, but only the slaves of Baal. Then they came in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had placed for himself 80 men outside, and he had said, The one who permits any of the men whom I cause to come into your hands to escape shall give up his life in exchange. Now it happened that as soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, Jehu said to the guard and to the royal officers, Come in, strike them down, let none come out. And they struck them down with the edge of the sword, and the guard and the royal officers threw them out, and went to the inner room of the house of Baal. And they brought out the sacred pillars of the house of Baal, and burned them. They also broke down the sacred pillar of Baal, and broke down the house of Baal, and made it a latrine to this day. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. However, as for the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin, from these Jehu did not depart, even the golden calves that were at Bethel and that were at Dan. And Yahweh said to Jehu, Because you have done well in doing what was right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart, your sons of the 4th generation shall sit on the throne of Israel. But Jehu was not careful to walk in the law of Yahweh, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam which he made Israel's sin. In those days Yahweh began to cut off portions from Israel, and Hazael struck them throughout the territory of Israel, from the Jordan to the east toward the sunrise, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, and the Reubenites, and the Manassites, from Aror, which is by the valley of the Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu, and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria. And Jehoahaz his son became king in his place. Now the time which Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria was 28 years. And that is the end of our reading for this morning. That was 2 Kings chapters 6 through 10. Join us again tomorrow morning for the next installment of our thematic journey through the Bible in 1 year. And until then, go in the knowledge and the awareness of the presence of God with you, of His great love for you, and of His Holy Spirit dwelling in you. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the people of Israel. Pray the promises and the prophecies of Scripture over them. And pray without ceasing for whatever it is that God has called you to, whatever He has given you influence over or authority over. Pray from that place of His presence, that place of stillness and rest, where you can hear His voice and know His heart, so that you know that what you are praying is coming straight from the heart of the Father. And be blessed. And be a blessing.